This episode of Around the Layout is brought to you by Spring Creek Model Trains. Family owned for 25 years, Spring Creek is your destination for model trains. Check out springcreekmodeltrains.com for a wide variety of offerings from today's top manufacturers and exclusive products found nowhere else. Whether in Deschler, Nebraska, or at a train show near you, stop in and say wow. To see where they'll be next, visit their website at springcreekmodeltrains.com. If you're looking to bring more realism to your layout industries, look no further than TullyModels.com, the home of Southern Tier Grain Modeler Supply and Steel Mill Modeler Supply. With models to fit steam, transition, and diesel eras, Kevin Tully has you covered with all of the components you'll need to take your grain and steel mills to the next level. Check out the entire catalog at TullyModels.com. Home Shops is pleased to announce the first annual Freelance Forum at the Colorado Rail Proto Meet, September 27th and 28th in Greeley, Colorado. Come join this gathering of freelancers with models on display, clinics, and freelance trains running on the amazing Colorado Model Railroad Museum layout. Bring your railroad's business car and add it to the first ever Freelance Forum office car special. Don't miss out. Register today at corpm.org. For more information on the Freelance Forum and to add quality freelance rolling stock to your fleet, visit homeshops.net. ATLP Extra is our monthly newsletter delivered right to your inbox each month. Sign up for free at atlpextra.com. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Around the Layout, where model railroaders come to tell their story. My name is Ray Arnott, so glad you could join us. On this episode, we're going to be talking N-Scale and two fine folks from the Iron City N-Scale group. We're going to be talking to Brad Williamson.
Good evening, everybody, and thank you very much for having us tonight, Ray. It's great to be here.
Glad to have you. And we also have Pat Moore. Pat, welcome to the show.
Hey, Ray, really great to meet you, and I'm looking forward to talking to you tonight.
I've been looking forward to talking to you two gentlemen when I noticed a new podcast had entered the realm and was excited to see that. And we're going to talk about that a bit later. That's the Iron City N-Scale Roundhouse Report. But we're going to get to know you guys a little bit. And I was going through the Facebook group, Brad, and I noticed you had quite a weekend at the Station Inn.
Yes, I did. I had a great time there. Dave Abelise, who I'm sure many people will recognize that name, invited me to come along. He and his friends, many from the New Jersey area, some of the NJ Transit guys that he works with, but they make an annual trip there every year toward the end of summer. And I was fortunate enough for Dave to ask if I would like to come along and hang out with them. Just had a fantastic time watching trains on the west slope of in the Alleghenies there on the former PRR main line, the Norfolk Southern Pittsburgh line now. They put on a pretty good show for us. We had many, many trains to watch and went to some pretty cool locations on the west slope and some even on starting down the east slope. Some of the guys went to. So, yeah, it was a pretty fabulous time and I just got home from that earlier today, as a matter of fact. So yes, definitely was a great rail fanning adventure for sure.
Oh, awesome stuff. And I saw you picked up a whole bunch of heritage units there too.
Yeah, within the first 24 hours of getting there, we were lucky to have a whole bunch of those go through. We saw the Pensy Heritage Unit, Interstate, the Erie Lackawanna, and the Wabash, and the Southern Unit. And then overnight, I guess it was in the very early morning. I was out on my morning walk, but there was an all-nighter held at the little town of Cassandra, Pennsylvania, which is not far, less than 10 miles from Crescent. But somebody who was there at the Cassandra all-nighter caught the Lehigh Valley unit, which is a little bit of a sore spot because a good friend of mine loves the Lehigh Valley, and he's a little bit sore that he wasn't there. So that's
Ray,
right. That's right. He's here tonight.
So, Ray, what Brad's not telling you is I also got to go, at least for one day, I got to spend some time with Brad and Dave and the group up at up at the station inn. However, I only got a trash train and a coal hopper. That was the only time I had up there. I kept waiting for something spectacular to come. And then, of course, every time I got on our page, Brad had another heritage unit that he had captured or caught on the line. So I got the garbage tray.
Well, the good news is that you didn't get completely left out. That's the
That's
cool
right.
part of
That's
it,
right.
right? But yeah, it sounds like you might have my luck of rail fanning of late, where I just seem to dry everything up when I show up. But it's kind of funny how rail fanning goes. I try to pull the comparison to fishing, right? It's like you never know what you're
Absolutely.
going to get, and at the end, you're still hungry, right? So it doesn't matter, which way you go about it. It's still a great time. There's never seemingly a bad day when you're sitting trackside, and when you guys get a chance to hang out with the likes of Dave Abelese and crew over at the Station Inn. That sounds like just a great time. 30 something folks you said over there. That's a pretty amazing group to be able to hang out with.
Yeah, and our good friend, also Iron City member, Todd Treaster, and his wife Becky actually joined us for 2 of the days. So they didn't spend the night because they only live less than an hour away, I think. So they made the trip down on Thursday and Friday and got to spend time with them as well. So just all around a really, really great time.
Awesome stuff. And you mentioned they're all part of this Iron City group, and boy, I really can't wait to dive into that, because you've built up quite an amazing community, and I want to really get an idea of how did this all got started. And Pat, why don't you tell us a little bit about how your model railroading journey has gone and how it led you to N Scale?
Oh, excellent. Yeah. So I'm a retired military officer, and when I kept home from Iraq in 2006, I was told, "Hey, you might want to get into some hobbies or something to take your mind off of everything that's happened for deployments." And my family and I always had HO when I was a kid, and it clicked. I was sitting actually in the in a base waiting to return home, and the chaplain handed me that pamphlet, and I was like, hobby. Oh yeah, model railroading. Maybe I should look into that again. And so I knew that with traveling, in scale was probably the way to go. It's portable. You can do a lot with it with minimum room, and you're able to tear down your layout and put it back up. So in my history, I've probably had to tear down my layout 5 or 6 times and put it back together. So with that all in mind, I went in scale, and I really enjoyed the scale because you can do a lot with a little bit of space. And so as we were going along, I started traveling a lot and being by myself at different bases while my family stayed in one location. So, to have that extra guest room or to have that dining room that I didn't really need because I was by myself. So I started putting the layout up with me and taking it with me. And then COVID hit, and I felt very isolated. And so Brad and I were actually on a different page together, and we started talking to each other like, well, let's see your video tonight. Let's see some extra drawings or of your layout, or let's see something you're doing. At the time, we didn't realize, we thought this was a layout the way it was labeled, that the page was, the Facebook group was a group page, but it was actually someone's actual layout. It was called Pittsburgh In Scale. And I thought it was just people in the Pittsburgh area wanting to talk about In Scale. No, this was someone's layout. So Brad and I kind of hijacked that for a couple of weeks until I realized, oh my goodness, I've done something, a faux pas on Facebook. So I decided to build our own page, and Brad was the first one I asked to come along with me and start talking about our layouts and everything. And very humble beginnings, during COVID. I'm thinking if we had 10 members for 2 months, I was excited. And we just wanted to touch base with people. When you're, I guess they call them lone basement model railroaders, or lone wolves, I guess some people call them. You
Mhm.
just don't think that many people are in the hobby. And I was like, if I could get 4 or 5 people in the Pittsburgh area to tell me they like N scale, that would be great. Well, I had no idea what I was about to open, the door I was about to open. And it wasn't just for folks in the Pittsburgh area. As we started growing, it was people that lived even in other countries that modeled Pittsburgh, saw the page and started liking the page, or they started seeing it, and we just started expanding. And one went to 10, 10 went to 20, 20 went to 1,000, and now we're sitting over 2,000. Now we are a private page, and I think a lot of people went to that Facebook because of trying to make sure that the content is protected and our members are protected from scams and from other things or from things you don't want to see. It also helps you not have to manage the page every 5 minutes when it's private. So we
Right.
are a private page. We do accept most people. No reason not to accept you. We just ask a couple of clearing questions just to make sure you're not scamming. So that's and on the Iron City, we always say we have long answers to short questions. So that's my long answer to your short question. But it was really based off of COVID, isolation and wanting to reach out with people and to share the hobby. And that was really our mission statement Brad and I had when we first started.
Yeah, COVID didn't the starts of these type projects and are really that share a common thread, right? Because I just remember that whole feeling of not being able to connect. I laid in bed one night and I was thinking, I can't even go down to the hobby shop right now.
Right.
Like just that feeling, right? That just feeling of just being tied down and compressed and whatever else you want to call it. It was awful. And so it was that was the way we connected. And I'm so glad we're able to talk about that as now moving away from it and so far in the past, because it really was horrible. And I know, we're fortunate that we're able here to be talking about it because some aren't able to do that through the tragedies that happened then, but it wasn't fun to live through. And for Brad, I imagine it was for you kind of reaching out and doing the same thing as part of this group.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been basically into model railroading. Some of my earliest memories are of model trains. My dad had a Lionel train set that my brother and I and my sister played with when we were kids. Then we had HO, if you remember the bicentennial HO sets. My brother and I each got one of those for Christmas. And we actually got into N scale. My dad's cousin, Pat was just talking about how he served in the armed services. My dad's cousin, Sonny, was stationed in Germany. And when he came home, he brought a lot of N scale stuff home with him from Germany. And he got kind of, I guess, outgrew the hobby or whatever, for whatever reason, didn't want to be involved. He didn't have any kids of his own. So he asked my dad if we would like to have his N scale stuff. And that, I think I was probably, I'm going to say about 12 years old or so at the time. And that is what sent me down the path of N scale. As soon as I discovered how much railroad you could fit into a fairly small compressed space with N scale. And I've always liked I call it the railroad to scenery ratio. It's easy to have. I always wanted to model Appalachian, the Appalachian Mountains, some kind of Appalachian scene. And you need to have some pretty good size high bluffs and high mountains, it's easier to do that in N scale and still have room for other stuff, when you have that small 1/60th scale. So that's what got me in N scale. As time progressed, though, everybody I knew kind of outgrew the hobby, lost interest. My brother, unfortunately, did. So I was operating for years because I don't actually live in the Pittsburgh area either. I live in a small town. I actually live in Oval. It's near Jersey Shore, Pennsylvania. If you've ever been on 80 through north central Pennsylvania, you've probably seen the Jersey Shore exit, but that's where I live. And I thought I was doing it in a vacuum. Right. I'll tell you, up until 2018, when I started building my current basement empire, I was building it with the impression that I would be the only one who ever operated trains on it. And then, as you mentioned, COVID hit, and I made friends with some people on different Facebook. I never associated Facebook with model railroading until COVID. And that's when I started to see this whole new big world open up. That's how I met Pat. And as he mentioned, we were, without intending to, because I don't think either one of us really knew knew too well about how Facebook pages operated. We both joined this website, our Facebook page called Pittsburgh N Scale, and we started posting our own videos and everything to it. And then we discovered later on the guy, he was always very friendly to us, even though we were kind of hijacking his page. He's our friend to this day. Steve McCune, his name is. He then changed it. He modeled the Union Railroad, which is basically switches steel mills that are owned by U.S. Steel in Pittsburgh. He changed it then to Union Railroad N scale, and we're like, oh yeah, we need to do our own page because we didn't model the union. And so, yeah, that's when we started Iron City N Scale, and we never planned for anything like this to happen. It was just a place for us to share videos with one another. And we were joking the other day, we have something called Iron City Showcases, where one of our members will say, I'm going to do, they do a Facebook Live video where they basically do a layout tour for us and show their layout operating and everything like that. We're getting like 30, 40 people to tune into that in a night, which is a small percentage of our membership. But we joke, Pat did the first ever Iron City Showcase, and we had 50% of our membership actually show up for that. And that 50% was like 12. So it's grown.
Don't worry, go by the percentage. Don't go by the numbers. The percentage sounds good. But it all starts somewhere. And it sounds like for you guys, and I kind of wondered this, I know it must be frustrating as both of you being N scalers and Brad, you being pretty much a lifelong N scaler. HO is pretty dominant. I mean, we're talking in the 70, 80 percentile of model railroaders falling in that HO category. Does N scale seem to the support system lacking and kind of this became a support system for N scale?
I believe that's part of it. Yeah, I never really thought of it from that perspective. But yeah, I think you have a good point there, Ray. I think it is, because we do help one another in many, many different ways. It just kind of grew organically. We very early on went to a fairly large train show in Monroeville, Pennsylvania, the Greenberg Group. And just by pure chance, we met guys who ended up being the founding members of the Iron City, really. Guys like Kevin Squire, Mike DeCenzi, Jim Hoffer, Richard Shirey. You've been on our page and you've probably seen posts from some of those guys. They have been, Tom Catalano is another one. They've been the backbone, and it's just weird how it happened, because this, skills that Pat and I didn't have. We knew nothing about T-Track, nothing. But we knew we wanted to try to start a T-Track group eventually. And we met Mike and Jim, who had been in T-Track for quite a while. We met Richard, who is our Iron City historian. He knows so much about the history of railroads in the Pittsburgh area. And that didn't happen by us planning it. I can guarantee you that. It just kind of appeared in our laps organically, and we were very fortunate. And we just did a podcast with some of those guys that was very successful. We called them the OGs, the original guys, and it ended up being pretty popular with our membership. So yeah, it happened kind of without planning. And then we did discover that the internet, which I never thought of any internet connection with model railroading, but it's a powerful tool for bringing people together. And you find out that you're not isolated. Like I mentioned, as recently as 2018, I thought I was going to spend the rest of this hobby as a solo lone wolf. And now I'm on a page with over, what do we have now? Or 2,000.
Right, 2,000. Yeah,
over 2,000. 2,000 members strong, and daily communication. And I've had several of them here come up into the wilderness of north central PA and have, come here and run my layout. We've also done some remote ops. So just stuff that I never dreamed of happening because of the fact that Pat took the step to create this page and brought me in it with him. It's just been a wild ride for the last 7 years or so.
Going back to you, Pat, and taking a step back a little bit, now you're using model railroading as therapy, which I think is just an amazing way to look at model railroading. And we recently had an episode where we talked to Dan Dosa about mental health and model railroading and all the positive effects of having this outlet. Talk about what you knew prior to all of this and before the group. I mean, we know Brad is, kind of lifelong N scaler. Were you kind of the same prior to getting into the hobby? Were you doing anything before, and what scale was it?
So my dad had a very nice HO empire, but he was a lone wolf. I was like, if my dad was, in today's world with social media and everything, I'm sure we'd have had hundreds of people come to our house to run the layout because it was huge. I remember kids. We were from the Huntington, West Virginia area, so the CNO was big. So Chessie was huge, so all of that was in my childhood. So railroad was, we were a big railroad town in Huntington with the paint shop and the motor shop there for C&O for years. And their headquarters were actually there before they went to Jacksonville, Florida. So it was a railroad town. My great grandfather worked for the railroad. My dad had uncles working for the railroad. So we knew a lot about it. And so we ran that. So I was in modeling until I went to college. And my first year in college, I joined the military. And so off you go, when you're really young, you don't have your own place or anything. So there was a gap, but I had an HO background. We used to run trains constantly in my house. And it was a good way, especially in those hot summers, to get down in the basement and run those trains when you're a kid. And it was a little bit, my dad gave us a little bit of that rope, right, to allow us to operate on our own on such a large layout when we were teenagers, me and my brother. There's a few years between us. But once we got that ability to operate and run those trains, that railroad had a lot of miles on it. And so it was a good to reach back to that childhood feeling when you come back from some deployments. And so I thought it was a good way to spend some time not thinking about anything, right? Just watch the trains go around, maybe do some painting, maybe work on some scenery, just kind of keep your mind off of the daily task, And I just retired. It was a few years ago. So I had 33 years of military. And so it got pretty busy there at the end of my career. And that was nice to be able to bring the layout with me and just, those nights when you can break away from stuff and just get a couple hours off. You're kind of isolated because your family's not with you. It was great to just fall on the railroad, and I got a lot accomplished actually. When you're by yourself, there's a lot of time to work on the railroad where you don't have time when you're taking someone to dance practice or to soccer or something like that. When you get isolated, sometimes you miss those great things with family, but you're able to fulfill it with the hobby. So the good thing about all that is I realized, hey, I don't want to do this by myself. I want to reach out. That was really the COVID thing and the mental health thing, wanting to bring some, people around. Really, I always call myself, Ray, the professional beginner. I feel like I'm a professional until I see someone's work, and then I'm like, oh, I'm a beginner. So I really use it as a help desk when we first got started. I'll just ask people questions here. So we do a lot. I did a lot at the very beginning of the page. It was mock-ups. I would take pictures of my layout and say, what do you guys think about this mock-up of this section of the layout, and throw it out there. And I don't know if it was luck, Ray, or if we just put off presented ourselves as genuine. Everyone that would respond, no one was hateful. No one was bitter. No one, rivet counted me on like, you can't do that. They were very polite. They would say, hey, everything from drawing on the drawings and sending it back to us on Facebook to show everybody, hey, they used a little red arrow and said, hey, this track needs to go at 20 degrees, not 40. Or, hey, this building needs to sit back another 30 feet so you can put a few more box cars in there. And when I say 30 feet, that's an N scale. That's not 30 feet. That's a lifetime in N scale modeling. But you started getting this great feedback, and I think people started talking about it, and they started putting their mock-ups on, or paint schemes, or different things on there, and then the page started, starting to get a little bit of reputation. The other funny thing, Ray, is we have a really hard membership, extremely hard membership to become an Iron City person.
Very high, stringent admission standards.
So there's two ways to join. You either show up at one of our shows and touch the track with putting a boxcar on or putting your own locomotive on, or we hand you a throttle. You automatically become a member that way. Or you click like on our page, you become a member, you answer the questions, and we bring you on. So it's not a real hard system to get into. But we also, as we're growing, Ray, N-scale is still our main focus, right? We really focus on N-scale. However, we've kind of loosened the reins a little bit to allow people with HO, because some people have multiple layouts, like a garden layout and an N-scale, or they have T-track and an HO at home. So we're allowing people just to share their modeling, because a lot of the skills, putting a kit together, it doesn't matter if it's G or it's N, the same skill set you need to glue the walls or put the roof on or put the chalk marks on.
You might just need better eyes at N-scale.
Yeah. A little bit steadier hand.
Yeah.
N-scale's not very forgiving.
My N-scale experience is decaling the ATLP 2022 interchange tour car, and I applied the decals myself, and I have a very deep respect for the N scale folks that weather and decal cars. I had my face planted in the magnifying glass where I probably should have just mounted a chin cup to it because it was just right against my face. And that round circle that's on the door, and I don't even know what it is, but it's like a half filled circle that's on the door of the car. That thing is about the size of a fat flea. And it was almost like you had to like accidentally get it in the right spot.
Wow.
Like, it is certainly a challenge, and certainly a challenge for the eyesight. And taking it back a little bit here, when Pat, you talk about, early on, you've got a world of experience with your dad in the HO side, but now you're starting N scale, and with the group, you're starting to ask these questions. And I'm kind of wondering if maybe it was the relatability of you being new that helped so much that it wasn't an intimidating group to get involved with, because, hey, the guy that's running it is the one asking a whole bunch of these, introductory and beginner questions.
Yeah, I think Brad would agree that our first questions, we do a question of the week every Monday on the page. And a lot of those at the very beginning were basic questions. What power are you using? How do you convert from DC to DCC? I know a good one. It was like ballast and glue. I must have asked 4 times different techniques. As I was going on, I would get to a certain technique, being that professional beginner, and that looked really good. And then I didn't do something correctly, and I went to move the track, or I went to take my modular layout down to move, and the ballast was everywhere. I was like, well, that technique didn't work. So here we go again, asking that question again. Okay, what did I do wrong, or what technique do you guys think? Here's what I here's what I did or didn't do. The other thing I think Brad and I do is when we do these showcases, you don't have to look like you're on the cover of Model Railroad magazine to have a showcase. We actually encourage people that are just starting to do showcases. That way they show their layout and then not really critique, but help. Like, hey, I just saw your showcase. That looked really good. Keep up the great work. Provide that, hey, you're going in the right direction. But then maybe come back with a DM and say, hey, that your track on that corner is really close to the edge. If you would just move it another 2 or 3 inches in, I'm telling you by experience, you won't have any heartache when that derails. And so, that type of feedback I think people are looking for. Brad and I also made it a commitment to each other that we were going to try to always act like you're in line at the hobby store and you're ready to, get ready to buy something, and the 2 guys are standing there or sitting there in the corner that always come every Saturday morning, and you're asking those guys questions. That's the feel we wanted with our page. Like, hey, it's just guys that are on the same boat, no matter what skill set, and being able to ask questions and to relate. And I think Brad would agree that's the theme of our page.
Absolutely, yes.
Well, I would say a lot of that is, you also showing a little bit of vulnerability in the fact that you have made mistakes and you're willing to share it and say, hey, this didn't work for me. That's not always easy to do either. Sometimes we don't want to share our mistakes, but boy, not only can you learn from them, but other folks as well. And I'm sure that's what you've also seen, Brad.
Absolutely, yeah. I tell people very openly that probably about 90% of whatever I know, I learned from making mistakes in the past. I believe anybody who tries to tell you they've never made any is probably not being completely honest, because.
And when you say not completely, they're not being honest at all. But yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Mistakes are a great teacher. And the nice thing about it with N scale, you're making mistakes in 1/60th scale. So nobody's getting hurt, or, there's not millions of dollars worth of damages, and if something isn't the way you like it and it doesn't turn out right, sometimes it's not fun to have to do it, but you can just brush the scene clear and start from scratch and solicit the help of other people who have suggestions for you to make. And there's just a wealth of experience now of many different people who are more than willing to contribute. I had, going back to the idea of designing my layout, first of all, with the idea that I would probably be the only one who ever ran trains on it. When I started having these remote op sessions on my layout and started having people come here, I'm like, I don't have enough industries here to keep people busy. It was mostly just there was a few, but it was mostly just a long mainline run. So one of the things I asked about is, I had no idea what kind of industry I wanted to build. So I decided I think I might have made that a question of the week even a couple years back. And somebody gave me the good idea to have a aggregate gravel stone transload facility. So I bought a Walther's kit and put in a spur to it, and that's what we went with. And then I was able to share that as I built and detailed that scene with the people, so that they could. There are some people who had never done anything like that before, and also there are more experienced modelers who said could offer their advice of try to match the stone color better with the color that's in your backdrop that you put on it. Just all kind of stuff like that, though, when you have a larger group people to share the hobby with. And the other thing that it does that I found out since broadening my horizons a little bit is when you're watching other people what they're doing, it inspires you to get busy through those downtimes. We all experience those downtimes, or oh boy, do I really feel like going down there in the train room and working tonight. Well, then you get on the Facebook page and see this guy's doing this, and a couple other people are getting going. It's like, well, I got to get out of my chair and get down there and get to work. So it does inspire you to get back and get busy when you can see what other people are doing. So it's just a real neat synergy when you can share the hobby with friends, whether they're friends who live next door to you or friends who, in my case, are 3.5 hours away in Pittsburgh, and some even further than that. So it's been very helpful both ways. It's been helpful to some of the inexperienced people who have come on, and we've been able to help. And then we've also met with people we have people who have museum quality layouts on there who are always willing to offer their advice to anybody who wants to ask.
Isn't that kind of the beauty of our hobby, that the theory that high tide rises all boats, and it's that lack of competitiveness and us just trying to make each other better. And in turn, when you try to make somebody else better, you make yourself better. And 2075 at the time that we're recording this, by the time this hits the air, I'm sure you guys are going to be, I don't know, 2,200 members of this amazing group. What's the secret? What's the secret to moderating a Facebook group to keep that engagement, to keep people encouraged to continuously post and be a part of it?
I would say Brad and I made sure that the page was really interactive, right? So we have different events, especially in the fall and the winter. In the summer, we kind of break off a little bit, slow it down, knowing people have a lot of other things that's going on in their life. But I think the big thing we do is it's called Let's Talk Trains, which is every other Thursday. And it's just a Zoom call. And we've had people from Australia on there. We've had people from different countries. And then we've had people from all over the United States come on and just talk. It's about 2 hours. It's structured. And we, ask people questions. We ask people how they're doing with their layout. And then we just talk about maybe the latest Kato locomotive out or scale trains, whatever's coming out. And talk about that. We talk about our DCC debates about who's got the better DCC. Brad I'll save the floor for Brad on that one. But we have a cover photo contest every month. Everybody's sharing those photos, and voting for the cover photo contest. We have our showcase. We call it the Iron City Showcase, which is in the fall. It starts back up, and we have about, I'd say, every other week or every 3 weeks, someone volunteers, and we have that showcase and allow people to really, show off their layout and show their trains. And maybe they have a freelance and they have a new paint scheme that they brought. And that doesn't have to be Western Pennsylvania or Pittsburgh. I mean, we've had people from out west. We've had people that do, Northeast. It doesn't matter. You don't have to have a Pittsburgh layout, or you don't have to focus on Pennsylvania to have these showcases. But the key here is we're making sure our members are involved, continuously asking our members to volunteer. And then that broke off into something completely different that Brad and I had always wanted to do, but didn't understand the complexity of it. And that is T-Track. We have a whole wing now of members that are in our T-Track group. Again, no dues, no fees. You bring your T-Track. We have Kevin Squire that's kind of our designer, and he'll put out an email or on Facebook, hey, for example, Altoona's coming up here shortly, Altoona Inscale. He'll reach out. We'll say, who wants to be involved in this? And if we have the space, we try to get as many people as possible involved. And if we start running out of space, the guys that have been there before, like Brad and I, we start subtracting maybe a module or two off of ours to allow other people to participate. A lot of the people just bring locomotives to those events, but ours is that's a whole new world that we're in, this T-track that's becoming very popular. And Ray, you would not imagine the amount of people that operate on this layout on a weekend. Well, you see a lot of clubs that you may have 6 or 7 guys there that are operating that weekend. They volunteered their time. We had 30 guys running, throughout a 6-hour period, different trains. We had 7 trains operating on the hour every hour or every half hour, rolling different trains on different users. So you can just imagine the buzz around T-track layout, and that made me very happy. I was telling Brad and the other founding members, I mean, we just started out with 6 or 7 guys, hoping that someone knew something about N-scale, and now we have an operating T-track with 30-some members on it, running throughout the day. The only thing that Ray, the only kickback to that is when all these guys sign up for a lot of these shows, there's door prizes. And when you bring 70 people to a show on a weekend, the Iron City kept getting the door prizes. So it wasn't rigged, I'm telling you. It's just that we are really bringing a lot of people to a show. And so that was something else that we were very happy that's happening, with the T-track.
Now, I heard this on your podcast, The Roundhouse Report, and you were talking about it a bit, and it started to remind me of the episode we did with Glenn Fricks and the Sipping and Switching Society of North Carolina. And really what Glenn was talking about was really kind of I don't know if we want to call it anti-club or but it was essentially everybody be an adult and we don't have to have a whole set of rules. And it sounds like that's where you're heading towards, Brad.
Yeah, that's where we've been really right from the beginning. We don't want to bog people down with thousands of rules. But like you said, the main rule is don't be a butthead. And we've been very fortunate in that regard. And to me, the secret sauce, I guess you want to call it, that has helped it grow the way it has. One of my favorite shows growing up was Cheers, and the theme song, sometimes you want to go where everybody knows your name. And we have always strived from day one to value anybody who wants to be a part of our group. You're important to us if you want to be in Iron City N-scale, period, end of sentence. Your layout is important to us. We value you, and we have created a safe space for you to share whatever it is you want to share. And we have really ever had very little criticism from people when somebody posts stuff. And anytime we have had it, we have 6 or 7 good moderators who just jump on it and stomp it out of existence. My philosophy has always been, I don't offer even constructive criticism unless somebody asks me for it. If somebody asks me, I'll say, may give a few suggestions, but I have seen people get turned off by someone who may have been, quote, trying to help, but maybe instead of trying to help, they were just trying to make themselves look important by telling them all the things that they did wrong. And that's one of the things that we from the beginning did not want to do. People want to show us anything on their layout. We tell them it's welcome. Even if all you've gotten to this point is a 4x8 sheet of plywood and you're just starting to put track on, that's fantastic. You are a modeler and you are important to us. And if there's somewhere you want to get with your modeling, we have people here who can help you do that. But come as you are, and you are important to us. And I think that has what probably more than anything has helped us to grow this to the level that it is now.
I'll tell you, one of my life lessons is learning that there's nothing more unaccepted than unsolicited advice. And you have to be careful. When somebody's open and willing to accept advice, then give good advice. But if they're not ready for it, it's not going to be received very well. On the other side, it's also so important when you put something out there to know if you want to learn something, you got to show that you're willing to accept some advice, so people who understand that unsolicited advice is tough to be able to swallow for people that know that it is okay. But give it in a nurturing way. Don't Sometimes there are some people that'll give it to you rough, and sometimes you need it rough. Sometimes you need to have somebody that looks at something and goes, "What is that?" And then okay, I didn't do it right. There's something
Yeah.
there, but on the other hand, there's ways, criticize it, but don't just criticize it without some kind of helping hand along with it. And it sounds like you guys have figured that out. Am I right, Pat?
Yeah, I would say that's exactly right. I mean, like for example, like we talked about earlier, I throw my stuff out there, my layout especially, as the example layout, and allow people to kind of show that, hey, ask for that advice, talk to them, put it out there on the page, and show people that, hey, it's okay. Put it out there, ask those questions. I tell you a good one that has probably saved about 6 or 7 people from taking the axe to their layout, and that was Brad will remember this one. I had an overspray issue and I didn't realize it, and I had sprayed glue on my track when I was working on another section of the layout, totally by happenstance. Well, I got on the page and said, "Hey, yesterday the trains were running great. Today is I can't get them to work. All the lights and whistles and everything are working correctly. Here's what I did in the last 10 hours on the layout." And within 5 minutes, I had 7 people tell me, "You put glue accidentally on your rails before I didn't even realize it. Here's 4 or 5 different remedies. Take that off and let us know what happened." And I did A, B, and C. 5 minutes later, I took a video of the trains running again. So you got to just, I was in total panic mode. I was like, I'm ready to retire from model railroad now. I don't want to touch this again. And it was just needed 5 minutes, to take a deep breath, ask a question, and allow people within minutes to give me 4 or 5 different techniques to get the trains running again. So that was great for me, and I'm hoping that's what our page is about.
Isn't it so great? We got such a great community, and I'd have to say it's got to be in the high 90th percentile of just great people in this hobby. There's 90 something percent of people that'll just jump in there. How can I help you? How can I show you how to get this done? And I'm sure you're going to be experiencing that. I noticed that when, we're talking in August now, but I would have to think that the Super Bowl of N Scale has got to be your N Scale weekend in Altoona, Pennsylvania. And I'm sure you guys, I've been watching on the page and people are getting fired up for that event. Why don't you guys talk a little bit about your plans for that?
One of the cool things we do is we get the station in, and we basically, I think we have all the rooms this year, right, Pat? So Iron City guys,
I think all but one.
So Iron City guys will be staying at the Station Inn for the N Scale weekend. We will be having our T-track layout there, so we'll be running the layout during the hours that the show's running, and then in the evenings we'll be sitting on the front porch eating pizza and drinking the either adult beverage or other beverage of everyone's choice as we sit there and watch the action through Crescent on the Norfolk Southern Pittsburgh line. And we'll probably also, our friend Todd Treaster always has an open house on his layout in conjunction with the Altoona N Scale weekend. And that's only about an hour away. So at some point many of us will be taking the track up to Todd's house to see any changes or what he's got and, going on his outstanding N Scale layout. So yeah, all that stuff. But you're right. For N Scalers, it's really, I'll say it's the Springfield, the Amherst show for N Scalers. And there's that much N Scale stuff there. It's, obviously it's not size wise the same magnitude as the Springfield show with everything that's there. But for just N Scale, you're not going to see, I don't think you're going to see more N Scale stuff at any show that you go to. So everybody brings their shopping list, and we always joke about our good friend and founding member, Tom Catalano. You'll see him at breakfast, and then he disappears into the show looking for N-scale chassis railroad equipment. And then we might see him again at dinner time if we're lucky. So,
but disappears into the aisles, never to be seen again.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah. Ray, the other thing we do is we also have a contest every year for our T-track, and folks can come in and put together a single, they call it, and we'll have a sign-up sheet on Facebook for that, and Kevin helps us put that together. We've done this for 3 years now. We have some grand prizes. It's a really great way to time yourself and have a deadline and get into the hobby. Get that single built, and we can help you. We can direct you on either online or in Pittsburgh where to pick up a single. So we can help you with that. But it's brought so many people into the hobby. This little competition that we have to okay, and so many people told us, oh, I had a deadline, I wanted to be part of this event, and now I can take this to other shows once it's over. The single to be on the T track. So
the cool thing about that contest too, if I can chime in, is the way the winner is determined is each module will be assigned a number, and then we'll have a little collection box where people can vote by just dropping in a buck or even drop in change, and whoever has the most money in their box at the end of the day is declared the winner. And we've gotten different vendors to donate stuff. Like we've had, I can't even remember. We've had free modules given away to the winners. We've had gift certificates to various N-scale companies and things like that. So that's kind of neat. But all the proceeds then that go into those boxes there was a gentleman by the name of Mike Phillips who ran the show for years, and he unfortunately passed away a couple years ago. And he was a big supporter, apparently. We found out through other people who are now organizing that Mike very much was a supporter of the SPCA, Society for Prevention of Cruelty to Animals. So all of the proceeds from the T-Track contest, the module contest, are donated in Mike's name to the SPCA. So it's kind of a neat thing that is able to carry on Mike's legacy, because he always did such a great job organizing the show. And this is just a little thing we can do to not only have fun, to get new people in the hobby, but also something we can do to honor his memory. So that's one of the big things on the agenda too.
Well, that's awesome. And yeah, like I said, the Super Bowl of N-Scale, you guys are going to use that as an opportunity to do good, along with encouraging people to build modules. And I'll tell you what, you even got me thinking a little bit, but we're not going to get into that today because we could just go on and on and on. We will share the link for the show, the N-Scale weekend in Altoona. That's September 20th and 21st. You can check out their website at theaamr.org/n-scale-weekend. And of course, we'll share that link on our website, aroundthelayout.com/181. So you guys talk about starting a group on Facebook, connecting with each other, and then you start doing these live events and joining each other and doing the modular thing, and obviously the N-Scale weekend, and hanging out the station in together and building this community. But then you fire up the microphones and start doing a podcast, starting the Roundhouse Report, where that idea came from and where you expect to head with the podcast.
So, Ray, our idea behind the podcast was we felt like the page was growing so much. We wanted to kind of give our members another voice, another one of these ways to interact with each other. And we thought there was some podcasts seemed like they were disappearing. I think several this year have kind of put their microphones down. And I thought, well, this is the opportunity maybe to jump up here. But in a different way maybe than other podcasts is that we are members focused. We do the report is actually us reading, almost like they used to do on AM radio, reading the newspaper in the morning out, here's an article from so-and-so, or a farm report back in the day, grains up to $2 or whatever. We wanted to bring that type of feeling to our podcast. Here's our members. This is what they posted. This is what they're talking about. And then our guests have all been members. We have a pretty good list of people that have become members that are in the hobby. And so we try to stick with our members. The other thing we did, Brent and I thought there was something really important to do, was try to go into the nuts and bolts model railroading a little bit. Maybe that is not for everybody, but this really helps. And we call that the yard masters. And what we're doing is we're taking questions that people have asked on our page, bringing in experts or guys that think they're experts, me and Brad, and kind of answering questions, anything from DC to what glue to use, or, hey, I've never been to a show before. What can I expect? These type of questions, and allowing members to answer. And the other thing we're doing is we're going after not just, your average model railroad age probably is in their 40s and 50s, 60s. We're really going after our younger members. We have really gained a lot of momentum with our younger members. One of our podcasts was the Young Guns. I think everyone there was under 40. I think everyone there, except for me and Brad, was really under 35. But and getting their ideas and their thoughts on the hobby and what they're doing and their techniques, you know, they might think are new, might have been used 25, 30 years ago, but have not been brought back up. And the younger generation's grabbing that. One of the key things that Brad and I are doing now is hearing what the younger generation's doing on our podcast. And Ray, I was really surprised how much steam is still a part of model railroading. You know, I thought that might be fading away a little bit. Every member, to the man or woman, was saying steam is in their layout, and that's the under 35 group, which I was really surprised about. So, like I said, I don't want to take. I know Brad's got more to say about this because Brad's the one that twisted my arm and told me to buy the microphone.
Yeah, so
But,
I kick this off for you, Brad.
I found that I was on another podcast and a regular member on it, and I enjoyed it greatly. And I just had in the back of my head, you know, a lot of times when people start a podcast, they have to build their audience, which I'm sure you had to do not that long ago. You what, probably 4 years ago, I think you started.
Yeah, well, about three and a half years, but yeah.
You have to. We had a pre-made audience of close to 2,000 people that we could start off with, and that's what we decided we wanted. As Pat was mentioning, and you know, the kind of promo we do at the beginning, it's of Iron City, for Iron City, by Iron City, that type of thing. So, you know, we wanted to do something that specifically catered to our members and gave our members a chance to have their thoughts on the podcast. We've even, as Pat mentioned, had some of them come on with us already. But even ones who haven't been on, we've taken. You know, one of the things we do in each one of them is each of us will find 2 or 3 things from the prior week that were posted that we found interesting, and we highlight that, and our members really seem to enjoy it when we talk about something that they posted. So yeah, it's kind of a podcast that was not just created for the sake of having a podcast. It was designed to be just another arm of outreach for the Iron City group itself, and we're having a blast with it. I don't know what it may turn into. You know, we're just as long as we're having fun with it, and as long as our members seem to be enjoying it, we're going to keep doing it. So it's just been a lot of fun so far. But yeah, it wasn't. And I will say, you mentioned earlier about competition, and that's one of the reasons why we wanted to come on here, because it's not healthy for the hobby if the two of us view you as a competitor. And to me, this podcasting thing is not a zero-sum game. Around the layout doesn't have to be diminished in order for us to be successful. We can, as you mentioned, also, a rising tide lifts all boats. Together, you know, we can both be successful. If there's room for both of our podcasts in the hobby, which I believe there is, that's just a sign of the health of the hobby. And that's something that's also important. It should be important to all of us. When we have people listening to us, we need to make sure that we're being ambassadors to the hobby and bringing people together in the hobby, creating that sense of community, that sense of camaraderie, fellowship, all of that. That's what we want to be about. And we definitely appreciate you having us on here, because it shows that, you know, that's the spirit we're moving together in. Even though we're on 2 different podcasts, there does not have to be animosity between us at all.
I couldn't have said that any better, although I will add to that. The main part of it is the high tide itself. The battle out there is to get more people to listen to podcasts, because in reality, podcasting, although popular and has hit a popularity of certain points, getting it into everybody's routine is still something that needs to be accomplished. And whether they're listening to the Iron City Roundhouse Report, or they're listening to the Crossing Gate podcast, or they're listening to Second Section podcast, or any of the other podcasts that are out there, they're in our realm. They're in the water right now. We just got to raise it to high tide and pick all those up, because if they're going to listen to one, they may go, oh, that was cool, and I've got another hour left in my trip, or hey, that was once a week, and I've got rest of the commute of the week. I've got something else to listen to. And that comes right from me, because I'll be honest, I've listened to my podcast twice already before it hits the air. I listened to it when I recorded it. I listened to it when I edited it. I really don't need to listen a third time, as much as I love my own show. I'm looking for other podcasts to listen to. So when I see Iron City pop up in the Roundhouse Report, like, thank goodness there's another podcast out there that I can listen to other than my voice and, the guest I've heard already out there. So it is exactly that. The more that we all come together, it's just like model railroading, where you want to support it, whether you're doing scenery, whether you're doing weathering, whatever your inside the hobby thing is, you want to see it supported. You don't want to have to fight against anything. You just want to be able to do it. And we talked about that positive feedback and all those things, and that bleeds over to the podcasting world as well. So on behalf of absolutely nobody but myself, welcome. And I know that you guys, of the things that we really hope for, and at least myself, is great ambassadors to both hobbies, model railroading and podcasting, putting the care and attention into it so that when people listen to your podcast, they don't go, ooh. They listen to it and they go, wow, where is there more? And that's the same thing we want to do with model railroading. We don't want to turn people off at the hobby shop, and we don't want to turn them off when they turn on their phones and listen to podcasting. So kudos to you guys. I've listened to your show. I know you guys are on the right track and heading in the right direction.
Well, thank you. That means a lot. Yes, thanks. We should add, too, we're very delighted to have you as a member of Iron City N-Scale. So it's great to have you there. And feel free to, I know you've jumped in, but if you want to share any videos of pictures of your layout, or, maybe even someday do a showcase, whatever you want to do, there's no pressure, but you're a member now. So as we mentioned before, you're welcome and you are important to us. So feel free to chime in with whatever you feel like chiming in with.
I think that group's going to get me in trouble, was what's going to happen here, because the wheels are already starting to turn about what I could possibly be doing as kind of in between HO scale layouts and the possibility. And I've already talked to my good friend Joe Mame, and I've started to turn his wheels a little bit about this whole concept. So to be continued, and perhaps something I can bring up in the group at a later point. But for now, just wheels turning and a lot of thinking. But one thing I will say, two things to congratulate. Well, one thing to congratulate you on, and one thing to warn you about. One, congratulations. You've cleared the 7-show threshold, which in podcasting is where a lot of folks go, to heck with this. I do not want to edit another show. I don't want to do this stuff. You guys have passed that threshold. Congratulations. Here's the challenge. Figure out a way to do podcasting and model at the same time. If you guys can do that, and don't let podcasting get completely in the way of your modeling. I talk about that. I say, you want to bring your layout to a screeching halt, start a podcast, but figure out a way to give yourself some good life balance with the podcast. Keep it fun, keep it entertaining, keep doing the things you guys are doing, and you are definitely on the road to success. So, gentlemen, I want to thank you so much for coming by Around the Layout, telling us all about the Iron City N-Scale, the group, the modulars, obviously the Roundhouse Report podcast, and we'll share links to the group, to the podcast. All of that will be in our show notes, aroundthelayout.com/181. Brad, Pat, thank you so much for coming by.
Thank you for having us. It was great. It was great to be here.
Oh, thank you very much. It was a great show. We hope to be on maybe again one day.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Around the Layout. Learn more about today's episode, check out past shows, and much more on our website, aroundthelayout.com. Show your support by becoming an operating crew member at aroundthelayout.com/crew. Follow us on social media, aroundthelayout.com/social. And send us your feedback, aroundthelayout@gmail.com. Thanks for hanging out with us around the layout.